Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Kushner,
Here.
Osborne,
Here.
Latari. Here. Jones,
Here.
Euler.
Here.
Okay.
Approval of city council minutes.
Move to approve.
Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari.
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes. Adoption of agenda, please.
I move to adopt agenda as presented.
Here.
Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari. Yes. Jones,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Okay.
We have a nice group of people back here. We have a proclamation. Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Johnson County. Would like to come up?
I recognize the t-shirts.
Come on up.
Yep, all y'all get to come up.
Hey, Jamie.
Jamie. Want to talk to you?
Hey, Eddie. How you doing? Hey, Joe.
Hi, how's it going?
What's on this?
Oh, I don't want to be behind her.
Sorry.
She's too cute.
Marcy, you so. All right, Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Johnson County Proclamation, September 2024. Whereas Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Johnson County, Missouri, a youth empowerment organization that enables life-changing mentoring relationships to ignite the power and promise of youth in our community. And whereas by changing the course of young lives, we shape our community's social and economic future through improved economic, health, and social outcomes for young people with mentors. And whereas Big Brothers Big Sisters of Johnson County has created new matches each year by partnering with parents, guardians, volunteers, and others in the community to help youth achieve higher aspirations, greater confidence, and better relationships, the avoidance of risky behavior, and with educational success. And whereas the agency's goal is to encourage more volunteers to join our mentoring movement, now therefore, be it resolved, I, Bruce D. Euler, Mayor of Warrensburg, along with the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2024 as Big Brothers Big Sisters Month. I encourage everyone to volunteer or donate by visiting their website and learning more about how you can get involved in igniting the potential of youth in our community. Dated this 26th day of August, 2024. And thank you. Eddie again, yep, Marcy, thanks so much. I know.
Do I do this?
Yes, no, cheers. I'll get it. See you, Dave. Okay, item 6, presentation. Fiscal year 25 budget cover photo contest winner presentation. Presentation of the Warrensburg budget cover photo contest and the top 3 photo contest winners presented by Marcy Bryant.
Good evening. Mayor and Council. Tonight, it's my absolute pleasure on behalf of City of Warrensburg and the Warrensburg Arts Commission to announce the finalist and the winner of the budget cover contest. This budget cover contest has been held for multiple years now. And so we did a call out on social media, press release, and City Clerk Jody Schneider helped us out tremendously to help get the word out about this contest. And in your packet, you have the 3 photos that were chosen as finalists. You have Kristen Dyer's Johnson County Courthouse, Kristen Dyer's B2 Flyover, and Tawanda Moore's Nancy Anderson Park and Children's Memorial Garden. Kristen Dyer's photo of the Johnson County Courthouse was chosen, and Miss Dyer is here tonight, so I'd like to recognize Kristen. Excited about this. Kristen's picture will be featured on the cover of the budget, and I know City Clerk Schneider also does a little item as a thank you for volunteers in April. And so sometimes those photos will be used more than just for the budget cover. And we're really excited to be able to utilize that. And it also reminded us how tremendously talented our community is. We have some amazing landmark locations throughout our community, and that was part of the contest criteria, is those community landmarks, those things that make Warrensburg unique. And Kristen and the other participants featured that rather well. So we'd like to recognize Kristen. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
These are great.
Item 7, public hearing. Public comment on the fiscal year 2024-2025 annual budget presented by Courtney Christensen, interim HR finance director.
The full presentation now, or are we waiting until?
I don't know.
Let's do it.
For the public, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Just timing and kind of how we organize our agendas. We obviously want to have an opportunity for folks to weigh in on the budget. So we will present it now. And then of course, take comment, and then later on your agenda is when we will do the first reading. We are presenting this as a first reading only. And then we will do the second reading at the following city council meeting. So if you all have any changes for us this evening, we will incorporate those, and then we will adopt that final budget at the second reading. So want to be able to have that opportunity to take comment as well from the public as well as you before we adopt the final budget. You all know, kind of heading into this budget season, we started with a governing body retreat where we spent some quality time with each other in a room. And kind of, based on those conversations, you all got to hear some of the challenges that departments were having, some of the goals that we had, and then we got to hear from you all too, what your goals and aspirations were for the city and what you would like to see us try to tackle in 2024 and 2025. So coming out of that, one of our biggest priorities for this budget year was, of course, to have adequate staffing for all of our departments. But also compensate fairly those folks who are working in those departments, as well as maintaining the high quality of service and programming that we provide for the city of Warrensburg. I am very happy to share with you all this evening that we have accomplished all 3 of those things with a balanced budget this year. There has been a lot of number changing, swapping, transferring, going back and forth between Courtney, department directors, and there has been a lot of time and effort that has gone into this budget. And I am very proud to put it before you all this evening. You all received, Jessica, do you want to hear those out? Thank you, while I'm chatting here. So this is an abbreviated version of the budget book, but this is really the meat and potatoes of that budget book. So this is every department, as every fund, every department, and every division's budget before you tonight. So you will know exactly what you are adopting. We'll go over the aggregate numbers in this presentation, but you all have the details in front of you. So without further ado, I will let Courtney get into it. Thank you.
Hi. So, So you have that in front of you. It's a lot. It's your line item budget. It has every line item for every department in it. So that's a lot to look at. So I have summarized it for you. You know how I like my summaries. Overall, the budget is $45 million. That's with all budgets of all funds. And I've divided those into 4 categories. There's the operating funds, which you know is what I do quarterly analysis on. So, which our future I will introduce right now. We have Carolyn Toohey has started today, our new finance officer, who will be taking over as the team leader of the finance division. And then
Welcome.
met Jessica, I believe, but this is Jessica, and she is our management analyst / budget analyst. So we finished the budget, the numbers at 1 a.m. on Saturday, and Jessica worked all day Sunday to develop the book, which isn't quite ready for publication, but it's looks beautiful. The only thing wrong is some of my numbers, not her. She's perfect. I made a few mistakes, so we will get you a better book. So going back, so we have operating funds, which would be the general fund, the park fund, and the water and pollution control fund. All right. And then capital investment funds is what I would count in as our 2 capital improvement funds, you know, the transportation and the sales tax. It's also our GO bond proceeds. Okay. We have the debt service funds. And the debt service funds would be the debt service fund for the certificates of participation, which are backed by our sales taxes, the Parks Department's 3/8 and our 1/2 cent for capital. And then we also have the GO bond debt fund, which is now separated out. So you're going to see that you're going to be, when you approve this budget, if you approve this budget, you're going to be approving a new fund, which is to separate out the debt. Proceeds and debts are not supposed to be in the same fund. And it's actually what you signed when we went into the general obligation. So I've split those out. So we now have a new debt service fund for GO bonds. And then also the neighborhood improvement district has debt. And so those are all included in those debt service funds. And then the remaining funds are the fiduciary funds, all the trust funds that you guys manage, the Arts Commission, the Public Art Fund, those kinds of things are all falling into that remaining 1.6%. They're small, but they're mighty. There's many of them. And so they fall into that. What I'm going to do today is, of course, our operating funds is where the majority of our expenditures are, except for the capital. But the capital improvement budget, you have already seen. I presented it to you at the retreat. And we have not made any major changes on that. And then we also, we did quarterly, we also did the capital last time? Yes, which is that $21 million this year in a capital improvement fund, capital investment groupings, because that includes the bond proceeds. So that has not changed from your presentation last week, so I was not going to re-present it. And then the debt service fund, we went through the debt service schedule at the retreat, so I wasn't going to go through that either. Okay, so I'm going to stick to the general fund, which is all of our operating department and the services that are directly provided to the residents of the community. The revenue sources for that $45 million, we all know, we talk about property taxes, sales and use taxes, franchise fees, we have service fees, fines and forfeitures. The lodging tax, but also included in there are grants. When you look at the 45 million, you start having more of those grants come in the different kinds of funds, donations, interest on investments is important. And we have transfers from the different funds to each other for like debt service, that kind of thing. And then we have our proceeds from the bonds, the 2021 and the 2022 bond sale. We have those proceeds, which are all in that programmed into that $45 million budget. The expenditure categories, we've gone over these before, but for the public, you know, we have wages and benefits, commodities, which would be like office supplies, contractual services, which would be engineering, consulting, contracts. It's even contracts for like the cleaning of the building. Any kind of contract can go in there. Capital outlay is typically not anything over $5,000, but it can add up when you buy more of them or whatever. But it's like equipment, small equipment, things that make things work better is what's in that category. And then we have our transfers to our other funds. I've pulled out community agreements because they're important to the community. And they are all in there, and they are in at the same amount as last year's budget. So they have not, they've not grown, but they've also not been cut. So all of the groups that had them last year are still in this budget, just so you know. Capital improvements, we did see a growth there because of the GO bond proceeds that we brought in. That's $15 million. So that $45 million budget overall, if we took out the bond proceeds, we'd lower that by that, we'd be down to like more like 30, which would be more comparable to last year. And then we have transfers and again, bond proceeds. So those are kind of our major expenditure categories. For the operating funds, I've already talked to you, general fund, parks, and water and pollution control. The general fund is our largest operating fund. It represents 55% of the operating funds. That is where you find all of your public safety, your community development, economic development, and legislation branch, the city clerk, and then of course the administrative services that support all of the services that those other departments provide, which has to do with payroll and human resources, hiring people, and finance, paying the bills, kinds of things. We also have IT is in that grouping too, which is very important. So the general fund, just looking at it by those categories, wages, commodities, contractual services, the FY24 estimate is the estimate based upon the third quarter analysis, which we had last week. And then that has changed a bit as we've gotten more revenue and we've done more analysis of that. It does include funds for quite a few things. The FY25 budget, you can see, is almost equal bottom line, but how it's been distributed has changed. And what that is that we have the market adjustments going into effect on the second phase on October 1. And that is putting people at the bottom of the new pay ranges. The new pay ranges would go in effect October 1. So everybody has to be paid at least the minimum of their range. And then we also have that group of people who were not included in the first round, which are the people who have been working for the city for 7 years or longer and are not at the middle of their range. And so there are bumps for those people in our organization. In addition to that, it was important to go ahead and make sure that we put in a pay raise for that constitutes a very small group of people. It's a mighty number because it's really sad to think that we actually have people who have worked here 13 years and are in the first quartile of their pay range because of how things have happened. So they got a big jump, but it's not very many people. In fact, it's around 15. So out of 121. So it's important that the other 100 employees also are rewarded. And so it does include a 3% across the board pay raise for anyone who is performing at average or better. And to do that, then we had to make some adjustments because we have a limited amount of money and we wanted to present to you, this was the direction of your city manager, of a budget that was not deficit spending, that was not using fund balance. So to do that, adjustments had to be made. And so our priority was the employees and our workforce. And that is what you see here. And how that's done without the departments pulling their hair out, just so you know, is that we have the extra revenues in the current year. And we are able to use those, plus departments had savings in the current year that you saw in the third quarter. All of that money has been reprogrammed so that anything that was taken out of the 25 budget, for example, the communication budget was completely removed. It's $38,000, but we are encumbering it out of our 24 budget because we have the excess funds to do so. So it's a one-year thing, but it makes everybody whole. And the same thing happened with some contractual services. I can give an example because Gary and I have talked. $20,000 in computer supplies, left that line item. But it is in 24 and it will be actually probably programmed and PO'd hopefully before the end of the year. He'll go ahead and actually get to purchase it earlier. So every single thing that was removed was put into the other one. And if we didn't have the funds, then we wouldn't have done this. The order was that the 3% went if I couldn't do this. So it was 1 a.m., but it is balanced and it was done. And we have the 3% in. We also added a few other things that, so we have unfrozen 3 positions that had been frozen since the beginning of the COVID. One of the positions was from the finance department and it became Jessica's position. We have one in public works, which will become a maintenance worker 3, I believe, or something, but he's got a new position, and police got unfrozen their corporal position. So those were all unfrozen. And then if you remember in the retreat, the presentation from fire about all the overtime and having to, for the public, knowing that they had turned down 90 different, I think that's right, 90 different PTO requests because they did not have the staffing. So people were unable to use their leave and go on vacations with their family and do what they needed to do. As you heard, we needed 3 positions. At that point in time, the chief thought he had to have all 3. We were able to work it out. He has come up with a very creative way, and we have added 2 positions to try to help that situation. So it should lower, it should let the employees use their PTO, and it should lower our overtime. So it was very hard work on the chief's part. It was a very creative solution. We were able to, at the direction of the city manager, to get that also into the budget. So you can see why the change is all in wages and benefits, but it was related to everything you heard and everything we talked about at the retreat and what was really needed for the community, and the employees. So that is all in there. Overall, what you're looking at is a decrease from the estimate. That is not a decrease from the budget. The budget document has historically, so we use the same columns, was it would have 1 year of actual, it would have the estimate of the current year, and then it would have the budget. So that's what I've compared to because that's what's in your book. But in fact, when we look at the budget for 24, and the change to the bottom line budget for 25, we would see a 5.8% increase because we have an increase of $747,000 in revenue. So we would actually see that. So it looks a lot more draconian than it really is, I just want to say. So, and so that's kind of our overview of them. And then we go on to Parks and Rec, which we know is so important to the quality of life and our belief in the community and making it a livable community. They are 15% of the operating funds. And we have the exact same categories, the same estimating basis, which is third quarter, the F25 budget then, and then the changes. And what you see is a bigger increases in wages and benefits, but they were able, with the permission of their board,
Yep.
They were able to add 3 positions. So that is in there, plus the 3%, plus the market. So all of that is in his budget. We worked on that, and it's totally balanced, isn't it? It is to 0. If you
Excellent.
really had to have it at 0, we had to just go to every dollar. Didn't we? So it is balanced to 0. I think we have 800 extra in the general fund.
We want
But so you can see how that worked out and things were adjusted, but all of that is according to what Chris presented to the park board, and that was approved by them. So we are all good there. And then the last one is water pollution control as part of the operating, and that represents 30% of the operating funds. And you can see here that they experienced a decrease due to their expenditures. Like there's a little bit of a decrease in debt because, you know, their debt payments as you make them, then sometimes that goes down. But again, nothing was removed you know, the biggest change in this, and I should have said that for the general fund, and it affected parks. That capital improvement budget I presented to you 2 weeks ago, we put everything that was capital in it. So it's not, in this case, water pollution control has to buy their own stuff in their own one, but we showed it to you. But theirs is in here. But for the general fund, all of that stuff was moved to the capital improvement fund. So that lowered those numbers too. It doesn't mean they don't have them. It's just that it's showing up in the capital improvement. And we were able to get it in on the half-cent sales tax and the transportation without having to use any kind of fund balance. And we only made a transfer of $30,000 from the general fund over to pay for everything that everybody had in that plan. So, so that has had, you know, something of an effect. But, so this is the budget for the water pollution control. I don't know if you have any comments. You did that one without me. So I don't have as much information off the top of my head, but it is what everybody had seen and everybody had approved. So, just so you know. And so that's the end of the operating budgets. You can look at your pages. You have each fund, and then followed by each fund is what's going on in each department. So if you look at, you've got pages 24 through 80. If you look at page 26, you will see what is the, all of the departments in the general fund. The numbers are up in the top corner. No, numbers inside. I'm so sorry. Never mind. She didn't put the numbers in. Okay. It should be like your second or third page. You'll see the general fund and then every department, just as an example. So it kind of walks you through so you can see what's going on. And then you have the pages for each of the departments, and then it has each fund. So it's got the park department, it's got the WCBGs in there, it's got everybody, it's got all your capital budgets are in there. So we wanted to make sure that you had all of that information. Does anyone have any questions?
The only thing I would add on the water pollution control fund, it does look like there's a pretty significant drop from the 24 estimate to the 25 budget. But just a reminder, we had budgeted for that $1.2 million project for the lift station, which we have been moved to the McGuire Street sanitary sewer. And we just don't have a project that large in 25. So that's why that's what it is.
Yeah, I knew there was something, but we didn't take anything out. So anyway, any questions?
Just a question for folks who would like to look at the budget. Is it posted online, or I know that folks can come in and ask Jody for a copy as well, but what's the easiest way for someone who would like to look around the budget to do that?
What we talked about, go ahead. Do you want to say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we just want to do one more quick run through and make sure we have all of our accurate numbers. So we do have the whole budget book.
Right.
So give us till the end of the week to run through this and make sure we get everything cleaned up, and then we will post it as a draft
Okay, great.
on the website. And then after you all adopt it at our next meeting on September 9th, wow, summer's over. September 9th, then we'll make it the final version. But
And do you know where on the website it will live?
Jody.
it's under finance
Okay.
and then under budget documents.
Gotcha. I have a couple friends who I know are gonna really want to dive in, and I'm not gonna be able to answer their questions, so I'll be directing them to you.
Yes, please
That's-
do. That's
Okay,
fine.
thank you.
Yeah, but we just wanted, we didn't have time. I was
For sure.
prepared yesterday. We didn't have time to go through and, you know, just check everything.
Yeah, this massive amount of work. Thank you,
Yeah.
really.
This is
It's
very
just-
nice.
It is so easy to read,
Yeah,
and
Very well organized.
yeah, this will make it so.
And that's all due to, I do the numbers, Jessica did all
Really.
the
Thank you,
making
Jessica.
it easy
That's a
to
lot of
On the
work.
budget side, we appreciate that it's a balanced budget.
Yes,
And also all the department heads who had to work so hard to get their numbers down and make it into the budget. It's fantastic work.
all the many hours of work represented
Yeah.
here, so. Thank you.
There's no one signed up.
No joke. Okay.
So you want me to?
No public comment, and then you'll do this one.
You'll open a
This-
public hearing.
For
Yep.
Chris,
Mhm.
just what about the,
Yes, absolutely.
it's,
We didn't have anybody for public comments signed up. So item 7.2, public hearing setting property tax levy for 2024. A public hearing on ordinances fixing the annual rate of levy for property taxes by the city of Warrensburg for general revenue fund, park fund, debt service, and purposes for the year 2024 and levying said taxes. Which we just. Presented by Courtney Christensen, again.
All right, you know, being numbers. Okay, so, the pro forma is, I guess we don't have a presentation or anything, but, so what it is, you know how it works, right? That we have revenue neutral, requirements and all of those things. So when we go through and we look at what our assessed value increase was, we this already. I guess I've just talked about it so much. We had a very nice increase that was due to new construction. We had very little increase, $1.2 million in total assessed valuation that was due to reassessment. So new construction and new purchases of personal property are excused from that revenue neutral. And so we were able to keep our 30.3549 mill levy the same. I don't know how many years that is, but I know that it's several years now for the general fund. So it's the exact same mill levy as it was before. The park fund was able to keep their 0.1928 and because of that. So it was one of those things that was very easy to do because all of it was new. There was very little. And because there was between that 1.2 million, that was the reassessment, that is 0.8% increase. So it's not even a 1% increase. And they compare that then to what is the CPI. So you can get up to CPI, which was 3.1. So
What's the CPI?
the Consumer Price Index.
Okay.
So the Missouri state law says that you can receive up to that amount. So if in fact, our reassessment had grown at 4, we would have had to roll back to 3.1.
And that's due to the Hancock Amendment.
Yes, but kind of changed afterwards a little bit, but yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's a change to it, yes. And so, because it was such a small growth, we were able to keep our exact amount without any machinations, really. So that helped us out. And so we did see an increase in our property tax then for the general fund, which was reflected in the presentation I just did. Between all of the property taxes, because we get railroad, we get M&M, and we also get delinquencies, it went up to a little over $1 million. It's about $1,020,000 in property taxes off the top of my head. And compared to this current year, which was around the whole thing is like 907. So it's a little bit of a growth. So that was really good. Park fund was the same, you know, again, we only had a 0.8% increase because it's all the same amount. And so they were able to keep their mill levy too. And it raised theirs, you know, without delinquencies would be growing to about 528,000 is how that calculated out. The debt service is unique in that the council, when they promoted the GO bond sales in 21 and 22, also in 2017, the city made the decision to not include personal property tax in that. Now, of the growth that we experienced in that 12 million in growth, 11 million of that was in personal property tax. So there was really no growth in our actual real estate, and then in the debt service, the way that the state wants you to look at it is that you then calculate what you need for your actual debt, because we're obligated by law to levy whatever it takes to pay our debt. Okay, you don't have a right to not levy for it. Then they want you to calculate what they consider to be a reasonable delinquency, which is 2 to 10%. Okay, and then they said for this project, we would like you to just estimate 10. So if you estimate 10, you put that on there. And then it asks you what your whole next year's debt service would be. Because in a perfect world, they would like you to have a fund balance that covers all of your next year's debt. Because that way you would have a year to recover if something were to happen, because you owe this money. So that's how they start out. So you figure all that out, and then it tells you what your levy could be. So our levy could be 1.2. Because when you do all of that, but the council made a decision that it would never be greater than 0.59. So you are actually literally, if you adopt, you will be rolling back to the 0.59. Okay, but it makes enough to cover all of our debt and what I would consider to be a more reasonable delinquency, which seems to figure out to about 3.5 when I look at the history of what your delinquency rates are. And that'll cover us, and we can make all of our debt payments, our general obligations. So it's still 0.59. So no change at all. If you saw when you get the whole thing, there's a pro forma, and we've already gotten back our affidavit from the newspaper. That's what was in the newspaper. Okay. And it tells in the newspaper, it tells how much was raised off of that reassessment versus how much was raised off of new construction. So it's a very, no changes at all, and very minor changes to people who have not done any improvements on their home or bought anything expensive, cars, whatever, that would be personal property taxes. Then this is gonna, it's basically the same. $1 million of assessed valuation, you divide that by 100 because of the way we do it, and you're down to $100,000 difference that this is being applied to if you didn't do any new construction or anything. So it should have a minor impact to leave it the way it is. And it's very much needed, as you could see in the budget. It would be very, very difficult to change it from what it is for us. So
I'm confused on
sorry.
where the council decided that it would never be more than,
The 0.59.
Yeah.
So I can tell you a little history on that. So when we went to the voters in 2017, and we said we were gonna increase the mill levy by 0.59 to issue debt. At that time, it was for the fire apparatus, for some traffic control on McGuire and Veterans Road. And so then when we council directed staff to look at re-upping that for another 20 years to pay for McGuire. Part of the materials that we presented to council and then was that how much that 0.59 levy would raise over 20 years, and that was 17 million. And then council directed staff, and that's what they wanted, was that 0.59 on real property only. They were not interested in charging the 0.59 on personal property as well. And then that's the information that we took to the voters. And so in our educational materials and those town hall meetings and those conversations that we had with the public, we said that this general obligation would be paid with that 0.59 increase in the mill.
okay,
So that's where that number comes from.
okay, thank you.
So, and that's why I was trying to say that it's a promise, and as long as you can do it, that's great.
Thank goodness we can do it.
Right. By law, you would have to do something to pay those if
If
it
the
didn't make-
0.59 doesn't,
right.
okay.
Or you could bring in the real property or whatever, but that is down the road. We actually sat down and met with the financial advisor who put together that $17 million plan. He actually came and visited with Danielle and I. And they based that on a 1% in the non-reassessment years, which was this one, and then 2% in the reassessment years. And so they were really conservative on that. And so, like I said, it produced enough that we could eat the delinquencies if we had them or whatever, we were still going to be fine. So it looks, you know, really healthy for now.
Okay.
So. Any other questions?
Well, thanks, Courtney.
There was no one signed up for this one either.
Okay, so.
Close.
So we'll close the public hearing portion of this and move to item 8. First reading only, ordinance. An ordinance adopting the annual operating budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024 for the city of Warrensburg, presented by Daniel Doolin, our city manager.
Really, Courtney, gave the presentation, for the operating budget, for the next fiscal year. Happy to answer any questions. I know, Councilmember Latari had an additional question, for parks, so, we will stand for questions at this time.
I was just curious what the 3 new positions were that you're getting in parks.
I'm sorry, but I think, yes. Well, honestly, to tell you the truth, I do know the recreation supervisor of marketing. We had a part-time position, actually 2 part-time positions. We were able to combine into one.
That's
And
great.
we also added advertising to that because the last 2 years we've shown growth. So really this didn't increase our budget.
Yeah.
And so that one, and then I know that we also upgraded in our aquatics with the takeover of MPM,
That's right.
the contract service. And so those are the positions that I'm aware of that we have.
Yeah, well, and those new positions aren't necessarily just in the budget, but were added during the current year, but were not in last year's budget.
Gotcha.
So-
Okay, gotcha.
That answers that.
Yeah, that's great.
Because
That's
it
great
wasn't-
news.
For me, it was working through what was coming in new on 24, 25.
Yeah.
And so with the aquatics and then the marketing position.
Yeah, that's great.
But you're having a
Glad
good
to hear.
year on revenue side with parks.
So that
So you're
again,
having a good year though with revenue and growth.
oh, yes,
Yeah.
I'm very pleased with revenue and parks. We have already reached last month, actually, our projected numbers for programming. We receive about 30% of our budget is in program that is growing each year. At least I've been here, so I've been that long, but it is increasing. We're very happy to see that. Aquatics is a big part of that. New sports or summer day camp continues to grow. And really for me, that's the goal. That membership is the more that we can bring in revenue in regards to that. And of course, we do the benchmarking, which means that we're not overcharging people because we do comparisons with other cities. So that's the very positive thing that we're trying to do with the park fund.
And your pool will be opening the 1st of September,
Yes, it will, September 4th.
September 4th.
Yes,
Are you gonna do like a ribbon cutting, a grand reopening,
the park board has not talked about that yet.
fireworks?
I think we're all just gonna jump in.
That's a big,
I'd like to see it
cannonball.
open and then we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna send,
Maybe
we're
so.
gonna have Chris and Doug race down the slide.
there we go. Then that could be a good fundraiser. I would pay to see. it.
Doug, what do you think?
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Anything else?
Anything else? Nope. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So we have a first reading. Can we get a motion, please?
Motion.
Nope, you don't.
No, no motion
Okay.
needed,
Oh,
All right.
we don't do that.
not on a first reading.
Okay. Item 9, first and second reading ordinance. An ordinance setting the annual rate of levy for taxes by the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, county of Johnson, for general revenue fund purposes for the year 2024 and levying said taxes presented by Courtney.
So the general revenue fund, the tax levy is the 0.3549, which is the current one and was last year's and the year before's. No change to that, and we would ask you to do first and second reading and pass that. That can go into effect.
Move to read the second reading by title.
Kushner,
Yeah.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
An ordinance setting the annual rate of levy for taxes by the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, county of Johnson for general revenue fund purposes for the year 2024 and levying said taxes. This is for adoption or rejection. Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
yes,
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 9.2, an ordinance setting the annual rate of levy for taxes by the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, county of Johnson for park fund purposes for the year 2024 and levying said taxes presented by Courtney.
We would ask that you approve the property tax for the park fund at 0.1928 as was published and as has been for the last 2 years, the rate. It may have been for longer than that, but that's the amount of time I know about, so.
motion to move to second reading by title only.
Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes,
Euler.
Yes.
An ordinance setting the annual rate of levy for taxes by the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, county of Johnson for park fund purposes for the year 2024 and levying said taxes. This is for adoption or rejection. Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
yes,
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 9.3, an ordinance setting the annual rate of levy for taxes by the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, county of Johnson for debt service purposes for the year 2024 and levying said taxes by Courtney.
We would ask that you approve and go through the first and second reading today for the debt service at 0.59 mill levy. Please.
motion to move to second reading by title only.
Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes,
Euler.
Yes.
An ordinance setting the annual rate of levy for taxes by the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, county of Johnson for debt service purposes for the year 2024 and levying said taxes. This is for adoption or rejection. Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
yes,
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 10, other business. 10.1, a resolution to authorize the police department to apply for Missouri Department of Transportation, MoDOT, Highway Safety Grant through the state of Missouri, presented by Chief Munsterman.
Mayor, City Council, appreciate you listening to me tonight. Still on Courtney's show. It's been all about, we have applied for a grant through the state of Missouri, through MoDOT. If we accept this grant tonight, it'll award us $12,380. We would look to purchase approximately, 5 new radar units, replacing, 12 to 15-year-old radar units. If we purchased all 5, the fiscal impact would be about $235 if we purchased all 5 of them. I recommend, and staff recommends that, we accept the award on the grant.
Any questions? So we have a resolution?
motion to approve resolution.
Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Thanks,
Yes.
Chief.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes,
Euler.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 10.2, mayoral appointments. Appoint Jonathan Clark as a member for Children's Memorial Gardens and Nancy Anderson Park Advisory Board for a 3-year term through August 2027. Reappoint Craig Conant as member for Children's Memorial Gardens and Nancy Anderson Park Advisory Board for a 3-year term through August 2027. Reappoint Jeremy Vanway as member for Children's Memorial Gardens and Nancy Anderson Park Advisory Board for a 3-year term through August 2027.
I don't know.
Okay. Reappoint Cindy Lichty.
Thank you.
That's what I would have said, but I'm glad to have support here. Reappoint Cindy Lichty as member for Children's Memorial Gardens and Nancy Anderson Park Advisory Board for a 3-year term through August 2027. And appoint Anna Reed as a member / school district representative for the Arts Commission for a 5-year term through October 2028.
Move to approve, appointments.
Kushner,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Latari,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Bueller.
Yes. 11, appearances to the council not listed on the agenda. Item 12, miscellaneous matters from the mayor and or city council. Item 13, city staff updates. 13.1. Community partner update, Big Brothers Big Sisters second quarterly report 2024.
I think that that's just in there for your all's information. I
Okay.
think if Dana wanted to add anything to that, she would have come around.
I think she would have. All right. And with that, we will,
So, just real quick.
yes, okay.
I know I'm not on the agenda, but I reserve the right to speak.
You do. We will give you.
I just wanted to point out, I did hand this out to you all,
Yep.
something that we have not had, in the past. This is our, FY 25 budget in brief. So, in addition to the big thick book, for anyone who's not suffering from insomnia, we have tried to put the information that we presented, to you all tonight in a digestible form. And we'll be sure, we'll have these, at the front desk, so if someone just wants to walk in, pick it up, they can take a look. We'll also share this on Facebook, it's available on our website as well. A huge thank you to, Jessica, our new management and budget analyst, for putting this together. Canvas skills were not on the list of requirements, but she has, proven very valuable in that area. The one thing I did want to note, the value of the tax dollar and that $15.30 per capita per month for all the city services, that we do provide here in Warrensburg. So, I do think that is an incredible value,
Yep.
for our.
Per year?
residents. Per month,
Per month.
per month. So, you know,
I can't get my trash picked up for that.
and so, I do think that, we do provide a very good value, and although you may not, directly interact with your police or directly interact with your fire departments, or directly interact with your public works or community development departments, those benefits, that are provided to each and every person, I think that, that's a really good value, that we offer here in Warrensburg. I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I'm done.
Beautifully done.
And again, thank you for the great work on the budget.
Yeah.
Huge
That's
amounts, really, I think.
Just a huge job. And with that, Danielle going once.
Oh, my.
All right, we adjourn.
So, 2 more meetings.